This week on the latest episode of The Big Show, it's Easter weekend and the lineup for the Cannes Film Festival has been unveiled. We'll talk about some of the high-profile titles that will be featured. Plus, it's the 30th anniversary of Deep Cover, and we'll talk about the lasting impact of that film. In addition, we'll discuss Molly Shannon's claims against Gary Coleman, and Everybody Plays the Fool. This time it's Cuba Gooding Jr. He's up. We'll have all that and more on episode 499. Keeping it real with FilmGordon. Let's go. All right, and welcome to the latest episode of Keeping It Real with FilmGordon. I'm back in the theater. I am Tim Gordon, that man that's sitting over there, that Baltimore Orioles fan, that man of God. This is Holy Week. It is Charles Kirkland Jr. What's going on, bro?
I'm glad you mentioned that it's Holy Week because I'm just inundated by the amount of work, not just for my classes, but my pastor tells me I need to preach on Good Friday. So I'll be preaching a sermon tomorrow. And so let's go.
All right, there you go, man. So we got a lot of stuff to talk about this week, man. And, weather is breaking here in DC. It's been pretty nice the last couple of days, 70, 75 degrees. Charles is enjoying, along with me, the beginning of baseball season. We won't talk about his team because, I watched the results last night after talking to Charles. Charles is really not happy with how it went down. I, on the other hand, am very, very happy. So we won't rub it in because it's a long season. This is only the first week. And, it's a long way to go, man. 162 games. We're about 7 down. A lot of stuff happening, man. But let me lead off, man, with the Cannes Film Festival lineup has been revealed. And, ordinarily, I think that Cannes normally will have maybe inside of their high-profile films, it's usually like a lot of smaller films or films that will have buzz later on in the year. But I understand that we've been in a pandemic the last couple of years and that Cannes has not had an opportunity to really have a lot of in-person stuff. I think they were in person last year and a lot of people didn't come. But just looking at some of these early films, man, I'm like, wow. Of course, the big one is going to be Baz Luhrmann's Elvis, which a lot of people are looking forward to. I would not be one of those people. Charles, are you? I mean, I'm like, Elvis, I mean, I understand that there are people who are excited. I just would not be one. What about you, Charles?
Well, and to quote one of my favorite rappers, Elvis was a hero to most, but he never meant to me. I'm just saying. No, not a big Elvis fan. I mean, I respect, what he accomplished in his life on the backs of other people, but no, I'm not big I'm big Elvis fan, so it might be interesting. I think the big interest is that having Forrest Gump as the manager for Elvis. That's going to be interesting to see.
Well, Baz Luhrmann, who most recently did he do The Great Gatsby? Am I correct?
Yes.
And he's also done what was the other one? Moulin Rouge. I mean, Baz Luhrmann, as a guy who likes music in his films, Baz Luhrmann is usually always over the top. So it will be interesting to watch what happens with that film with Baz Luhrmann's involvement, because there's already a certain level of excitement around what Baz will bring to it. And for people who like his work, you give him the benefit of a doubt. For people who didn't like Moulin Rouge or what was the other movie I just named? The Great Gatsby. This one might not work for you. So we will check that out. Now, speaking of Elvis, his granddaughter, Riley Keough, also has a film that's going to be premiering at Cannes called Beast, which is set on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. Again, we read the descriptions, and, you and I both do film festivals. We go to, some of these like Toronto and Sundance, and the description is nice, man. You got to give me the execution. I mean, so we will see. Some other films, which is the one that raised my eyebrow, was Top Gun premiering at Cannes. Top Gun Maverick at Cannes.
I mean,
I mean, I get it. It's a high profile title, but at Cannes, I mean, the only like if you would have said it's premiering at Toronto, to me that would have made more sense because I've seen Ford versus Ferrari or those sorts of films at Toronto, but Cannes or Cannes, you know, for people at home going, they're mispronouncing it. It's either Cannes or Cannes. One of those two. You tomato. You pick. I think it's pronounced Cannes, but I've heard people use Cannes, so I'm like, okay. So, Charles, Top Gun Maverick. This movie's been sitting on the shelf, man, since 2019, 2020. They've been trying to get this thing out, and here we are in 2022. And, you know, this Top Gun, which is really interesting because they had it timed initially that it would have been the 35th anniversary had it debuted in 2020. So 35 years later. Now it's 37 years later, and here comes Maverick. What are you thinking? Oh, I'm sorry, was Top Gun 86 or 85? Might be 86.
No, 85.
Was it 85?
Yeah. I remember Top Gun intimately because I had the wonderful opportunity of seeing the screener for the first Top Gun movie at the Annapolis Naval Academy, seated around a bunch of crazed midshipmen. And it was one of the most exciting screenings I had ever been to in my life.
It was 86.
I do believe that was 85 because
I was 86.
It was 86?
Yeah, I just looked it up. It came out May 16th, 86. So we tried to get it right here on the show. So if it would have come out last year, that would have been the 35th anniversary. And I know initially it was either 20, I want to say it was either 2020 or 2019, because whenever COVID started, it got bumped. And I know it got bumped several times. So yeah, so it says that, yeah, I'm reading it.
I saw it at the Naval Academy. And again, it was a great film for the Naval Academy. You're surrounded by all these people who are action junkies, being midshipmen. It was a great film. I don't know if Top Gun 2 is a Cannes film. It really isn't a festival film. I don't think it would have even been appropriate for TIFF, like you said. That's not exactly the kind of thing that they go for. And unless this is supposed to be some cinematic masterpiece that we're looking at, I don't see any award nominations coming out of this. Maybe you know, for technical things, but you know, that's the kind of stuff you look for at Cannes. You look for these dynamite performances by actors or actresses or directors. I don't know how this fits. I know Cruise has been dying to get this movie to play for the last couple of years, and so I guess he'll take whatever he can get. Now,
other major titles announced at Cannes is going to be George Miller, who we last saw do Mad Max, has 3,000 Years of Longing. David Cronenberg has Crimes of the Future. Kelly Reichardt, who, you know, I've been very critical of some of her earlier work, but she has Showing Up at the festival. And James Gray has Armageddon Time, which are all in the official selection category at Cannes. We just talked about them confirming Top Gun Maverick alongside a tribute to Tom Cruise on the second day of the festival, which is scheduled to take place in person again from the 17th of May through the 28th. They have joining Elvis in celebrating the 20th century rock legends are two music-focused features. Ethan Cohen's Out of Competition doc, Jerry Lee Lewis, Trouble in My Mind, and Moon Age Daydream, a montage-driven midnight movie tribute to David Bowie from Brett Morgan in the vein of his Kurt Cobain film. So all that's happening at Cannes, along with new work from several returning Palme d'Or winners. There's a film a social satire called Triangle of Sadness. And the reason why I'm having this conversation is because Cannes is really like the kickoff of award season, right? So, you know, if you think years ago, Spike Lee debuted The Five Bloods at Cannes, right? So even before we get to Telluride, Venice, and Toronto in late August, early September, Cannes is kind of a kickoff. And some of these movies that are playing at Cannes, the ones that are really well received, may show up again at Toronto or some of those other festivals as the lead in. And I know people are like, hey man, the Oscars were just like, what, a couple of weeks ago, several weeks ago? And you guys are talking about the award season for next year. As Ferris Bueller once said, it comes at you fast. You got to be prepared, man. So there's a lot of stuff. So let me say some of these titles again. Triangle of Sadness, the Japanese film, Korean set film Broker. Our Romanian director has a film called RMN. And there's also a film called Tori and Lokita. Now, again, I don't know what's going to happen with any of these films, Charles. We might get lucky, a couple of months down the line. He'd be like, remember we talked about that in our Cannes special back in the day? Yeah, pretty much. So go ahead, Charles.
I will say this, and this will be news to you, but I solicited both Beast and Crimes of the Future for the Lakefront Film Festival. I have not heard back from either one of those people for, who knows? We may have it here in Washington, D.C.
Well, they're saying, Charles, and thank you for that. That was a good mention. That their official title has now swelled to 80. They have 80 titles at Cannes in person this year. They announced 49 at the press conference. They had a committee went through 2,200 films that were submitted for Cannes. 2,200. Yeah, man. So I am really looking forward to seeing what comes out of Cannes, and I'm looking at all of the films that are in competition right now. And there are a lot of movies, man, with a lot of big names that are coming out. And they have them in the different sections. Beast, as you said, is the Riley Keough film that is in uncertain, I'm not sure if I'm butchering this, but in English, uncertain regard. But that's probably not how you pronounce it. And then out of competition are Elvis, Final Cut, Masquerade. Oh, I'm sorry. No, it's not Masquerade. It's Masquerade. Masquerade from France.
The same word. It's Masquerade. Don't try to get all French on us.
I'm just reading it the way they have it here. November, 3,000 Years of Longing, and Top Gun Maverick are all out of competition. And of course, Moon Age Daydream is in the midnight section along with Hunt. You got a couple of special screenings, including Jerry Lee Lewis, Trouble in My Mind. And then there's several Cannes premieres. So the 17th, through the 28th in the South France, a festival I've long wanted to go to and check it out. But if I don't go, I'm good. if I'm not at Cannes, because, no big deal. It's good. It's all good. So Charles, before we move on, anything else about Cannes and the experience of what these guys are, what potentially is to come? Because some of those films are going to play longer than Cannes. I'm just telling you that now.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Michael Hazanavicius' movie. The Z is going to be also is actually the opening film for the festival this year, and he's also the one who gave us The Artist a couple years back. So that's going to be an interesting film, and I think The Artist was like 2011. And so to see him coming back with something interesting, I just can't wait to see what it's going to be. And that it's called Z. So we'll see. I want to see it. I wish I was going to be there, but yeah, it maybe sometime day in the future.
All righty. Okay. So also moving on to big news this week, and I forgot to put this in our opening tease, but I was surprised to learn about the death of actor Gilbert Gottfried, who passed away after a long illness at the age of 67. Gottfried came on my radar, I don't know, 30 some odd years ago, almost 40 now. And I want to say it was one of the Beverly Hills Cops movies alongside Eddie Murphy. Am I correct? With Gilbert Gottfried?
Yeah, that was 2. Beverly Hills Cop 2.
Beverly Hills Cop 2. Godfrey was absolutely funny. I went and looked at some of his work. Um,
No. Wait a minute. I, I think
One
we're
second,
getting
one
our
second, one
franchises
second.
mixed up. But go ahead. I'm going to check.
No. I'm checking now because I never want us to be incorrect as it relates to um, talking about folks and their careers. Ironically, his final post though was about Chris Rock, which is really
Yeah.
interesting about the post Oscar situation. So that was his last. That was his last post. Godfrey passed away on the 12th of April, and I'm trying to think. It was Beverly Hills Cop 2.
It
He
was.
played accountant Sidney Bernstein, which reunited him with his friend and fellow SNL alumnus Eddie Murphy. So yeah, man, this guy had an amazing career. It's funny because we talk about comedy. There was another comedian recently that passed away. Was it Saget, Bob Saget, that passed away? I'm trying to remember. It was a conversation you and I had about a comedian. And you thought, oh no, it wasn't Bob Saget. It was I forget the gentleman's name who you thought was funny, and I was like, yeah, he's all right. Norm Macdonald, remember that?
Norm Macdonald. Yeah.
Right. Now, this might be a case where we're on opposite ends because Gilbert Gottfried always made me laugh, and I had the opportunity to watch his infamous roast of Hugh Hefner, where he did the Aristocrats. That was funny. That was funny. I'm not even going to attempt to explain it. You just got to go online and research it. But pretty much, the joke itself is not a new joke, but it's been told over time by comedians who literate with as much filthy stuff as they can say to get you to the punchline. That's always the same, but it's always funny watching people get to the punchline. And Godfrey does like a 10 or 11-minute version of it where the first 6 minutes, I think everybody was in utter shock. And then after shifted and people were laughing and falling out of chairs and couldn't breathe, they couldn't catch their breath. And I watched it, I was like, wow, it was funny. So Gilbert Gottfried, man, 67 years old, another comedian, man, who has transitioned. Charles, as a person who has a background in comedy, people wouldn't know it from watching this show, but as a person who has a background in comedy, any thoughts on the life and career of Gilbert Gottfried?
Gilbert Gottfried is probably one of the last insult comics that we've come along from our life. A lot of people know him as Iago from Aladdin, the classic, or even the Aflac Duck. He did all that stuff, but I mean, his comedy was just biting. And you talk about how he was in the Aristocrats. Bob Saget was also in the Aristocrats. That tell this joke. But I mean, he's a storied career from his time on SNL on forward. I mean, he's just a legend. He was a legend, and there are a few people coming along today. I think of Jimmy Carr, who's in England, who does that kind of work, but nobody can do it like Gilbert Gottfried is. So it's a big loss. And I'm sad about it.
Well, it's interesting, man. There's this photo that somebody put up. I think it was from Lydia Cornell. She said, "I can't believe this. Gilbert Gottfried is gone. Rest in peace, funny man. This picture was taken with Bob Saget and Louis Anderson. Was only taken 3 months ago. So within the last 3 months, we've lost Bob Saget, Louis Anderson, and now Gilbert Gottfried. Now he is in the Great Comedy Club in the Beyond with all his friends."
Wow, that's an incredible picture right there.
That's an amazing photo, man, of those guys, man. So rest in power to Gilbert Gottfried, to Charles's point, an insult comedian of great renown. Somebody who always made me laugh. I think it was the voice, and the voice and the delivery always got me with Gilbert Gottfried. Like, that guy's funny.
So they had just announced that he was doing this movie called Hassle at the Castle, and both he and they were going to somehow have Don Rickles in it as well. So that was the first thing I said when it passed. People were like, "Well, what's going to happen to Hassel at the castle?" I was like, "I have no idea. I have no
Yeah,
idea."
unless there was some stuff I don't know, man. You know, sometimes people shoot stuff and it sits in the can. That's why, people. We talked about Chadwick Boseman back in the day. He had shot so much material that it even a year. I think it was a year or so after he died, they still were unearthing Chadwick Boseman audio and things that he had worked on. So we don't know, man. Maybe. But Gilbert Godfrey, as we said, dead at the age of 67. He gave me some entertainment. Thank you, sir, for the laughs, because I had a lot of them watching your material. Now, I will transition to something that's not funny, and hopefully you will not make it funny. But on a recent episode of Howard Stern, Molly Shannon came on the show and talked about how the late Gary Coleman sexually harassed her. Now, I'm only bringing this up, man, because we're not to make light of any woman in any situation being sexually harassed, because I got a mama, I got a sister, I got women in my lives, and we both have women in our lives that you don't ever want to have anybody be able to have been in that situation. And I used to say, back before the whole Bill Cosby thing broke, why would people wait, a certain amount of time? Everybody, Charles, has to process stuff in their own time, right? So I get that. This one is interesting because, of course, Gary Coleman, we all watched him, when he was a young man, doing it on his show back in the day. Him and young Willis, and you want to have this image or this idea about Gary Coleman being like this guy, this little cute kid, but you remember that this cute kid is an adult and a human being, and nobody's perfect, and as they say on the street, y'all, ish happens. So here we are years later, and Molly Shannon reveals that her and Coleman shared an agent, and that she had just signed with Coleman's manager and got the chance to meet him at a penthouse hotel room. So I'm just going to relay the story. So this is not me interjecting any of my thoughts. These are the words of Shannon in this article. She said, I think he was like, sit down on the bed. It was very sweet. And then he was like tickling me a little, this and that. She goes on to mention that she told Coleman that she was a virgin and tried to be polite about turning down his advances. And he allegedly only became more aggressive with her. He was relentless, Shannon said. Then he was like trying to kiss me and get on top. And I was like, no, Gary, stop. So I pushed him off. Then I would get off the bed. Then he would bounce on the bed, jump, 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 and wrap himself around me. I'm going to stop right there because, there's more, but we don't need to go there. Gary Coleman, who passed away, I want to say, I'm not sure exactly how long ago it was. Look that up, Charles, because I want to make sure we don't mess that one up again. Gary Coleman has been gone now, what? I don't know.
At least
for clarification, I just want to make sure we get this part right. Because I don't.
No, wait a minute. Hold on. Let's see. He passed away in 2010, May of 20.
So Gary Coleman has been gone for over a decade, and his story comes out. And I think it only made news because a couple of things, right? Here is another person who was brave enough to step up and kind of detail a very negative experience, right? And then the fact that the perpetrator was somebody that people knew. How does this, Charles, does this make you feel any way about Gary Coleman, his career achievements? Because none of us knew Gary personally, right? So it's not like, oh man, not Gary. But I'm just saying, like, his career achievements, does it make you think, or is this part of our, when I think about our culture right now, right? I'm not even going to go into what the most obvious piece is, which is what we have been talking about for the last two shows. We're not even going there today. But the fact that somebody can have a career in this business and for whatever reason, cross the line, Charles, cross the line, and suddenly we have to rethink or recalibrate everything we know about an individual. Is that the case with the career of Gary Coleman?
What you talking about, Tim? I don't understand. Because I think we all kind of knew that Gary Coleman was not the nicest guy growing up. I mean, everybody on Different Strokes had issues, and Gary Coleman was,
Dana Plato, Ty Bridges, Gary.
Yeah, I'm like, come on. We kind of knew some of this stuff was going on behind the scenes. I mean, they had trysts together, and Gary Coleman was, from what I heard, a lech growing up. I mean,
wow.
I'm not surprised by her statements at all. I'm not surprised that Molly had this experience, because I'm sure that there's a lot of people out there that had them. But the question I have is, and I don't want to step on the process of healing or whatever that she's going through. Why she got to talk about it now? The man been dead for 12 years. I mean, I understand.
I understand that you got to be. Tell you, we're not. Don't be Dave Chappelle right now. We're not victim blaming. I'm just saying that you have.
No. I'm not victim blaming at all. I'm saying, why does she have to go on the Howard Stern show and relate this?
Well, let me tell you why. Right, and as a person who produced on radio, what actually happens, and this happens on the Howard Stern show a lot, right? They have guests that come on, and the producers will ask questions because Howard has to have stuff to talk about, right? So and it's just like every other talk show. If you talk about late night with Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, what is my other guy's name that has John Baptiste, Stephen Colbert. Anybody that's got a late night show, the producers are talking, trying to figure out what the talking points. What are you here to promote? In Stern's case, a lot of times it's not about really something. It may be something they have to promote, but they'll also ask, are there any other funny stories that you want to bring up or any other issues that you want to talk about with Howard? And that might have come out in a pre-interview, right? So the fact that she is addressing it maybe for the first time 12 years after it happened, I don't really have a problem, because again, what the Bill Cosby case taught me is that if you have been engaged in bad behavior, and that bad behavior was 40 or 50 years ago, and somebody finally has the courage to step up, we can't blame them, Charles, for when they step up, because it would just be like somebody you are connected to if they had the courage to step up. There's situations that have occurred that I know of people who have never come forward to talk about situations, but they've told them to me. But it's not my place to talk about somebody else's situation. So we have got to get past the point of this whole, statute of limitations as it comes down to the time. I'm just being real, and I think
I hear what you're saying, and if they were in a court of law, or if she was in if this had a telltale book that she was promoting, I mean, I could understand, but just to come off the cuff and talk about a guy who's been dead for 12 years, been dead for 12 years. I'm not saying that she shouldn't have done it, but I'm questioning, and Howard Stern is one of those ones that is known for sensationalism and just doing stuff for whatever reasons that are less than valid. But you're stepping on, and like I said, Gary Coleman is not the nicest guy in the history of entertainment. So, but you're still trampling on a man's grave a little bit, and I totally understand the need for release. But was this the atmosphere? Truly, was she getting a release by divulging it on the Howard Stern show? That's my only question.
Okay.
Sitting on a couch with Oprah, Yeah, sitting on CBS this morning.
Yeah, no, I think that I don't think the venue is important. But again, like I said, I don't want to. I'm not going to labor the point because we have a lot of other show and get into the weeds as it relates to where things are released or revealed. I'm just to a point now that having talked to family members and talked to close friends, that I understand that it is not easy for women who have undergone this sort of sexual trauma, this abuse, to, we can't put them on our schedule and go, you need to talk about it when you need to talk about it, or we need you to talk about it now. No, everybody doesn't work that way. And I'm saying be sympathetic. And you and I will probably have another conversation, probably off air, where I'll kind of illustrate, because again, as Lady Gaga once saying, until it happens to you, right? So if it happened to somebody close to you, you would really, I think you'd have a very different attitude, because I get you. I was with you too. And that Cosby case taught me a lot, because we were riding for Bill, right? And I was like, man, come on, man. Maybe the first 35 don't count, man. But like, what's going on? And then when you looked at it in totality, and that horrendous experience that both you and I had watching that documentary at Sundance early this year, it sort of changed my opinion, that I was like, bruh, and plus, like I said, stuff I've heard over time, and I'm like, so we have to give people a little grace, man. It may not make sense to us, man, but sometimes, there are other thoughts higher than ours, man, that we need to kind of make sure that we're kind of living in that certain example of understanding and having a lot more empathy for people, for what their experiences are. And Charles, if you thought that one was fun, they also announced yesterday, and I'm being sarcastic, if you thought that one was tough,
I got that.
Cuba Gooding Jr., whatever happened to him? This guy pleaded guilty to forcible touching. What is forcible touching, Charles? And again, not being funny, because I'm not making light of any of this stuff, but I'm just saying, I was like, forcible touching. So they said he pleaded guilty to one count of forcible touching in a criminal case that accused him of violating 3 different women at Manhattan nightclubs in 2018 and 2019. It's a part of the plea deal.
Are you ready? Oh, I'm sorry. Were you ready? I was getting ready to give you the story.
Oh, no, I'm reading it right now. I was just giving this to the audience. As a part of the plea deal, the former Oscar winner avoids jail time and must continue his alcohol and behavioral counseling, which began in 2019, for 6 more months without any arrest. If he complies, the conviction will be reduced to a violation, which is not a crime. Wow. So he was accused in June of 2019 of squeezing a woman's breast without her consent. That incident, 2 more women came forward with accusations of improper touching. One woman who was a server alleged that the Oscar woman pinched her butt. Another woman said that he forcibly touched her inappropriately. All right. Let me just say this, man. All right. Because again, I'm not going to come across like I'm holier than thou, right? When I was a young man, there was a lot of things that working in entertainment, working in radio, that people did, right, that we thought was funny at the time, which probably is not funny. It wasn't funny then, and it's not funny now, right? So, yeah, that's tough, man. And, so I just feel bad for anybody. No, I'm serious. Charles is laughing. I'm totally serious, but I just feel bad I mean, we live in a culture right now where these things are more or less, especially over the last decade, that have really come to the forefront. And I think we as men specifically have to figure out, man, how to make that transition, because remember, we are men of a certain age, and meaning that we are over 40. So, once you're over 40, there are things that have transpired that we know of in our lifetime, but then we're in a different place. And Charles definitely disagrees with me. So he's just kind of looking at me with this look on his face, man. Like, go ahead, Charles.
Cuba Gooding Jr. just got the OJ. That's all I'm saying. He got away with murder. You read the charges. He groped this woman, grabbed her breast, squeezed another girl's butt, and the third incident was where he kissed this woman unwelcomely. So out of all those three complaints, he pled guilty to kissing the woman without consent and got this sweetheart of a deal where he's on this probation that he just has to keep himself. He has to go to alcohol counseling. He claimed that he was drunk at the time or whatever when these things occurred. But he got a sweetheart of a deal because once this is all, if he stays in compliance with the probation, attends the alcohol, it's not even a crime. He's not even going to be guilty of committing a crime. He got a sweetheart of a deal in this, and I'm saying it's a terrible thing that he did. But he got away with murder. That's all I'm saying. That's so when you see me sitting over here,
murder,
my head and all this stuff,
he got away with assault.
He got blessed.
Say that. So let me.
That's all I'm saying. He got blessed.
Okay. So in total, they're saying more than 20 women have come forward to accuse. And I keep throwing this out there. The former Oscar winner. I'm saying that intentionally, and if you know what I've been talking about the last 2 weeks. You know why I keep saying that. The former Oscar winner has been accused of 20 women who have come forward to accuse him of groping or forcibly kissing them in incidents dating back 2 decades. In 2020, the former Oscar winner was accused in a lawsuit of raping a woman in 2013. The woman alleged Gooding raped her in a New York City motel room. The former Oscar winner has denied the accusations. How many times did I get former Oscar winner in there? Yeah, exactly. All right, so I'm gonna leave that alone. But
yeah,
I wanted to
former Oscar winner.
Yeah, I wanted to bring you up to date on that because I think that this 10-year ban is ridiculous. It is ridiculous because there have been, well, never mind. I'm not going to go there, but I'm just outraged. Like I got a call on Saturday from two people I respect who are really good friends of mine and journalists who were equally outraged. And Harry Lennox, who has been a guest on this show, wow.
Let me just say this. Roman Polanski won an Oscar.
I was going there. I see you don't
Oscar.
Open up. This man was a fugitive. Literally, when he won the Oscar, was a fugitive. From law. He had, and let's just say what he did. This Oscar winner anally raped a 13-year-older and fled the country. He didn't get kicked out of the Academy until, I don't know, somewhere between 2010, 20, whatever it was. I know it wasn't
maybe like 8 years ago.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And they gave him an Oscar when he was a fugitive. So again, watch this. Somebody getting slapped on the stage of a live Oscar show. Is it bad? Yes. Should there be some sort of a punishment for that? Absolutely. Is banning somebody for 10 years, taking away their ability to work by, having projects and money dried up so this person can't work? Is any of that stuff fair when there have been countless times that there have been other people who have done things, I don't know, I guess assault of a minor and then fleeing justice, or other people who have been accused of crimes that have Oscars. I'm like, you can miss me with all this outrage and my favorite phrase, my favorite two phrases, Charles. You doing damage to the race. What the hell is this? 1940? Like, what are you talking about? It's 2022. Watch this. Here's an example. In New York, a couple of days ago, right? The guy that did that was a black guy. You think I'm going to walk down the street with my head held down in shame because a stupid black dude who's pretty much the worst criminal and well, actually, he may not be the dumbest criminal because they're all of them who get caught really quickly are dumb. But the fact that you rented a U-Haul in your own name, the fact that you had a bag that had evidence that was in it, which it would ways to identify you in the bag, and they caught you within 24 hours. He didn't bring down the race for me because it's not, we're above one person representing the race at this point. You know, we are all our own folk. We all have to be responsible for all of our actions. And the fact that there are some people who look like Charles and I that are out there doing dumb stuff doesn't take away from all the positive stuff I'm doing. So Harry Lennox, I was trying not to go there. Charles brought it up, man. Stop it, man. We're trying to move on. We have more show.
Look, there was a point in time when something like this would happen, and we'd be like, "Well, we know that wasn't us." But hey,
you mean like the DC sniper? That was my favorite. Like, wait,
the DC sniper.
What? That was a brother.
Wow. In corrections at the time of the DC sniper, and I correctly identified. I said those guys are black. I said there's two of them and they're black. I knew it from the start.
Wow. Well, you know, again, like I said, I have just been deeply disturbed and had lots of passionate conversations and interactions with people who are in the community, and they may not come on the air and they can't say it publicly, but I'm telling you, man, the punishment needs to fit the crime. And so when the punishment doesn't fit the crime, that's an issue. So speaking of punishment fitting the crime, we now get to our final segment of today's show. And it dawned on me that the day is, we're about Easter weekend. We literally are knocking on the door of the 30th anniversary of a movie that I think was a game changer when it was released in 1992. And I'll explain why. And the movie, of course, was Deep Cover, right? This film, directed by Bill Duke, starred Lawrence Fishburne, Jeff Goldblum, Charles Martin Smith, and the late, great, what is my man's name? God. How did I do this to myself? Not Victoria Dillard, because she's very much alive. Clarence Williams III, Roger Denver Smith. For people at home who are a lot younger that didn't see Deep Cover, Deep Cover tells a story of a detective who, actually he was a police officer first, who is brought in on an interview. They need somebody to go undercover. And when you studied his profile was one of a criminal, more of a criminal than it was of an honest man, which we find out going through his backstory that he was a son of a kind of a drug addicted guy who gets shot on Christmas Eve trying to steal him a Christmas gift. And he's got like this chip on his shoulder. And the reason why this movie means so much to me is that it is one of the movies that of one of our honorees that we just had a couple of months ago at the Black Reel Awards. We honored Lawrence Fishburne with the Sidney Poitier for Lifetime Achievement. And his performance in this film, another film that came out a couple of years later called Bad Company in 1994. About a year later, he does Othello and an HBO movie called Always Outnumbered, Always Outgunned. Lawrence Fishburne is somebody who I've literally watched since he was like 9 years old, when he was little Larry Fishburne and Cornbread Earl and me. So this movie, to me, I'd seen him in School Days and I'd seen him do some other movies, but this movie, Charles, was one of the first ones when I looked at him like, man, this transition from being a young actor to becoming more of an established actor. He would also go on the next year after making this movie to be Ike Turner. So Lawrence Fishburne is an actor's actor. I've seen this guy on stage. I went to see him on Broadway as Thurgood Marshall. Lawrence Fishburne, don't sleep on him. In the early 1990s, the big three of Black acting were Denzel Washington, Lawrence Fishburne, and Wesley Snipes. So to me, he has always been that dude. And this movie here was one of the ones where he perfected what I call this kind of dark, mysterious swag. I don't even know how else to say it other than that it was like a mood of how he moved like he was a Black Panther. Like just sleep. I mean, seriously, I'm not being racist. I'm not being funny, but I'm saying, think about somebody who is in the community who just has a certain carriage about themselves. Lawrence Fishburne, to me, was that guy. And when he plays in this movie, man, there's so many great one-liners in this movie. When the guy says, he asked him a question about, the money, and he said, only an end would tell you that. When you watch the movie, you'll understand what I'm talking about because there's a context built around it. But this is also a movie, if you remember, that Bill Duke makes. And 5 years later, Bill Duke reunites with Lawrence Fishburne and they do Hoodlum with Tyson, which is another really interesting performance from Lawrence Fishburne. But this movie is also notable because it introduced the world to Snoop Doggy Dogg, who does his first single with Dr. Dre, which is the title of the film, Deep Cover, right? So you had this new element to the film, I can feel it, boom, boom, boom. And then, that plays in with the narrative. You got Clarence Williams III, who by this time is a veteran actor who has done a lot of great work. The scenes with him and Fishburne that he understands who Fishburne is, and he's trying to give him salvation and save him. And Fishburne is understanding what he's saying, but I'm not really there yet. Crazy Jeff Goldblum kind of in the mix. Victoria Dillard, who would later get into a real life relationship with Lawrence Fishburne. There's a lot of stuff going on in this movie, man. And this movie, to me, that famous, I'm sorry, Bill Duke, I was about to say that famous scene, but that was actually Menace to Society with the gun in the interrogation room.
Yeah.
Same director, but there are a lot of connections to Deep Cover, a film I like a lot. I'm not going to say it's the greatest film ever made. Can I watch it over and over? Absolutely. I can watch Deep Cover over and over. Charles, I'm done. What do you think about Deep Cover, man?
Okay, first of all, I want to say I'm upset that you left Morgan Freeman off the pantheon of actors that came up during that time, because
he was not a leading guy, man. Remember, he did Street Smart in '87. He did he was a supporting actor in Glory. He was not he did Driving Miss Daisy, but you don't think of Lawrence Fisher. You don't think about Morgan Freeman the way you think about Denzel, Wesley, and Fishburne during that time. That's what I'm saying. So
95, he did 7. Shawshank Redemption was 94. Come on, he's leading.
Yeah, okay, but you got to understand, these guys are all around the same age too. Snipes, Denzel 67, Fishburne might be 60. So it appeared that they were all around a certain age, but they're actually not. Denzel, I think, is a little older than these other two are. But yeah, I get your point, man. But I still would not have put Morgan Freeman in that group, which is why I called it the Big Three, not the 3.5, the Big Four, because at the time, during their hottest, when I talked about, from about 90, let's say 87 to 95, for both Denzel, Snipes, and Fishburne, there's a gang of movies: King of New York, Glory, Mo Better Blues, where they cross paths. Fishburne is doing, like I said, Bad Company. What's Love Got to Do with It? So, by the time 94, 95, you start getting Morgan Freeman kind of breaking in. But that period right there, those guys dominated. Passenger 57, and on and on and on. You could just name Malcolm X. There's so many movies from Washington, Snipes, and Fishburne that are memorable movies that before Morgan Freeman became that guy. He was still a great character actor. What was his name? Fast Black?
Fast Black. Yeah.
He should have got an Oscar nomination for Fast Black. He was great in that film. He really was. But go ahead, man. About Morgan Freeman you were talking about.
I said what I had to say about Morgan Freeman. You shot it down like Morgan Freeman was nobody. But anyway, I know. I know we're focusing on your love for Larry
Morgan
Fishburne.
Freeman's publicist, I never said he was a nobody. I just said he wasn't a perfect picture. Wow.
Fishburne was great in this movie. You're right, but for me, I was really intrigued by Jeff Goldblum, who hit. I think the last thing I had seen him really do anything in was The Fly, and then here he comes in this film, and he's just, he's just a lunatic, I guess is the best way I could put it. But I really enjoyed seeing him in this movie as well. But this is one of those films that's just like a staple. If you're a black guy coming up in this time, everybody's seen Deep Cover, and it's just a great film. Back and forth, Bill Duke. I think it may have been one of those ones that was like. I know it was on the outlier of Menace to Society and Boys in the Hood and all that stuff, but it was kind of wrapping up that genre at that time. But it was a fantastic film, and I need to show it to my sons. I don't think they've ever seen it. So
Charles, let me jump in for a second, because as you were saying that, it just dawned on me, because when you said Menace to Society, right? So think 1991, Wesley Snipes is Nino Brown, right?
Yeah.
1992, Russell Stevens is Lawrence Fishburne, right? Denzel Washington doesn't really play that role, but of course he's got Mo Better Blues, Malcolm X, you got Jungle Fever. I'm just saying there was a period of about 5 years when these guys literally dominated like cinema. Like if there was a movie being made and they needed a black lead, it would be one of them three dudes. It just would be. And whether it's School Days with Lawrence Fishburne, whether it's I'm trying to think, none of those guys were in. I know Jungle Fever, of course, is Snipes. I just have a lot of respect for those guys, because now we're kind of in a very different period with cinema, where there's so many different people that we can look to, but that was not always the case, man, when you were talking about big budget action films, whether it's Always Bet on Black, Passenger 57, Wesley Snipes, whether it's Denzel Washington in a movie I couldn't stand called Ricochet. I tell you guys all the time, Denzel Washington has made about maybe 4 or 5 films that I think are just detestable. Like Virtuosity, awful. It's just awful. It's an awful movie. But again, there are 40 other Denzel Washington movies that are fantastic. So if it's 40 over 5, I can live with that ratio. That's 8-1. So every 8 Denzel Washington movies, for every 9 Denzel Washington movies, there might be a bad Denzel Washington movie. Just got to live with that. Denzel Washington is not perfect, but his percentage is a lot higher than almost everybody else. I guarantee you, if we sat down here and did a show where we went over the top 40 films from every person, it wouldn't be 9 or 45 films. It wouldn't be 9-1. I'll tell you that much. Samuel L. Jackson, is he a 9-1?
No.
Maybe. Watch this. Maybe. No. But you got to remember, as long as you made Formula 51, that's always going to be one of those. Formula 51, awful. Awful.
Hey,
we should actually do a show. All
the Marvel movies count for Samuel? I mean,
all those are great. But my point is, we should actually do a show where we pick we pick a group of people and we find and debate their worst movies. That would be fun. Denzel Washington is just too easy, because I think you get everybody either saying Virtuosity or what's the other one I just said with him and Ice-T?
The
one that I just said was awful, that I didn't like, from 90, 93, 92. Ricochet. Awful film, man. And Denzel will be watching, man. Come on, bro. I know you're sitting at home going.
He's not going to argue with you on that. They may have been fun to make, but he knows that they were not great movies.
Not good movies, man. So yeah, I'm just thinking, man. But Deep Cover, man, getting back to that film, man, it's just, to me, it's just a movie. And here's the easiest way to say it. It has a vibe that really works. Like now, Deep Cover is still a really good movie. Like, so you know how sometimes you watch movies and you go, yeah, that movie kind of, it didn't age well. Deep Cover is like fine wine. You can pop Deep Cover. If you've never opened it up, you open up that DVD, you're like,
I mean, you got television shows nowadays that still trying to play deep cover where you got people doing the same stuff. It's a timeless story, really. I mean, it just lasts forever.
man, look at this. They said Deep Cover. Here's some of the reviews at the time. Roger Ebert gave it 3.5 stars and praised the voiceover narration, which Lawrence Fishburne did, as poetic and colorful. That's part of the process of elevating a story from the mundane to the mythic. Bro, I can't say it any better than that. Deep Cover, it was almost as if when you talk about, and who wrote the screenplay for this? Let me just look that up real quick. The screenplay was written by Michael Token and Henry Bean. Michael Token wrote Gleaming the Cube. He did The Rapture, which was a really interesting movie. He also wrote The Player, which is also celebrating his 30th anniversary. And the way they wrote this movie, man, and the way it was shot, everything about Deep Cover really, really, really works well. You got a police officer who's going undercover, and he partners up with a guy as they are trying to move enough units on the street. You know what I'm talking about, in order to fund a designer drug that the Connect really is not into. And there's this whole kind of back and forth challenging of masculinity that results in him finding his virtue and finding his way. Fishburne trying to step in between because, he's trying to keep his involvement undercover, but, trying to keep it deep cover. Right. And of all the films that are made about, people going undercover, at least in this urban space, this one to me is probably the best one, even though later on you have the one with LL Cool J as God. Remember that one? What is that movie called? I'm gonna tell you. Oh, you do. You know what I'm talking about. LL Cool J, Neil Long, and Omar Epps. Come on, man. Really? I got to be responsible for watching all the movies on this show, man.
So, I probably have seen it, but guess what? I don't remember it.
In too deep.
Oh yeah, that no.
Mine the same territory as Deep Cover. Nearly not as good. Now, better villain in LL Cool J, but the Omar Epps character is nowhere near as riveting as Lawrence Fishburne was in this film. Nowhere near. So again, man, like I said, man, congratulations to Bill Duke, Lawrence Fishburne, Jeff Goldblum, the late great Clarence Williams, Roger Denver Smith, who's great in this movie. There's even a small scene from rapper Def Jeff. He played the bartender.
Def Jeff, yep, sure did.
Def Jeff is in this movie, man. So this is a movie, and remember, hats off again to Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg, who Dre launched the man's career with the single, which was the title cut of this film. Deep Cover, man. If you have not had an opportunity, please, 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 on my recommendation, check it out. And if you've watched it again, do what I'm gonna do this weekend. I'm gonna watch Deep Cover again and be like, ages like fine wine. All right, Charles, we got about a minute to go, man. You got anything else, man? Because I know we got a bonus episode coming up in a little bit where we're going to review these movies.
Well, you told people to watch Deep Cover. I guess we don't need to do a bonus episode to tell them about what's out in the theaters. I'm just saying.
Man, that's kind of what you're doing. Charles is trying to get ready for Good Friday sermon. So he'd be like, man, I'm out the door. I ain't trying to do no more. All right. So as we tell you guys in closing, please see something good at the movies. Deep Cover means a lot to me. I want you to watch it if you've never watched it. Hopefully it will mean something to you. Watch it inside of the context. The 1990s were a really interesting time in film, and this movie does a really good job of placing you in the mindset of the early 1990s and what the drug game was at that point. So, on behalf of my good friend and obstinate thinker, Charles Kirkland Jr., we hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. He is risen. We will see you guys over this weekend. You take care. Charles, you got any last words?
He is risen indeed.
There you go. All right, brother. Amen. You take care, man. I'll talk to you guys next week. Bye.